The Metroid series is home to some of the most critically acclaimed games of all time, which only makes this situation regarding Metroid Prime Remastered even more significant, because the game is hard to find. We have a scalping issue where people are finding the game, taking out of store shelves where no one else can buy them, and they're being made available for far higher prices. Well, we now have a statement from Nintendo suggesting that they're going to rectify the issue. So what does this mean? What does this suggest for Metroid Prime Remastered and its sales? And what does this suggest for the future of the series? I think very, very good things, and that's what we're talking about today.
Hey, listen!
Welcome everyone, this is AndresRestart, and today we're going to be talking about how Nintendo has promised to meet the strong demand for Metroid Prime Remastered, and what this means for the future of the series. So, let's first point out that Nintendo shall drop this game out of nowhere. If you don't know what shall drop means that the game has been announced, and it comes out in the very same day. And that's what happened with Prime Remastered. And at $39.99 USD, and this game visually looks more impressive than almost any other game out there for Switch, if not every game. That's a whole other debate that I will link in the description below and at the end screen. But the point is, this is an incredible value at $40 with this quality, one of the highest rated games out there on Switch, and it seems like people actually want this game, even though the Metroid series has a history of not selling as well as, say, Zelda or Mario. The quality's always been there, and it's starting to look like people are realizing this. Because even now, days after the release for Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, a new game from a series that tends to sell better than the Metroid series, is not performing as well as Metroid. Metroid is still at the top of the eShop charts right now, days after the release of Kirby, and even beforehand, since the Direct, has stayed at the very top. This bodes well. But now that the physical version of Prime Remastered is out, it's been out since the 22nd, it seems like people are having a lot of trouble finding this game. It seems to be sold out almost everywhere. And even a lot of people who order this game through Amazon are having their orders delayed to a month later. What's going on? Well, it's hard to say for sure just how well the game is selling, but the fact that Prime Remastered is ahead at the eShop charts, even though it came up before Kirby, and now that Kirby is out, it's still outperforming it, it suggests that Metroid Prime Remastered is going to at least outsell Kirby, which is bound to sell probably a couple million. Of course, that's just on the eShop, but digital sales have increasingly become more and more of a significant factor when it comes to the overall number of games sold. So anyways, the point is, there's a lot of signs suggesting that Prime is selling really well, but it also might be the case that Nintendo didn't really expect for there to be this much demand for the game, and they weren't quite ready. So Nintendo Life reached out to Nintendo to get a statement on them on this Metroid Prime Remastered situation, and this is what they said. "We will do everything we can to meet the strong demand for the product. Please continue to check with major retailers for availability. If the Metroid Prime Remastered game sells out at various retail locations in the US, we will work to provide more units as soon as possible." Some of you may argue that this is a very general, basic answer. It doesn't really tell us too much. But Nintendo does add some flavor here, and they describe Prime Remastered as being in strong demand. And when we go back to earlier how Prime Remastered is showing strong signs to be outperforming Kirby, a series that usually outsells Metroid, this bodes pretty well, and the fact that Nintendo is now aware of this situation hopefully bodes well for this scalping situation too. That way people can actually get Prime Remastered at the wonderful price of $39.99 as opposed to $59.99 like most Switch games. And you definitely don't want to be paying $120 or something like that, as some scalpers are trying to get you to pay. And it should also be noted that the game has been available digitally since February 8th, so it is interesting that we are seeing this situation over the physical version, even though the game's been available for some time. But to be totally fair, because the game is in limited supply, it seems, or not meeting demand with the physical version, a lot of people who are planning on buying the physical version may have simply decided to buy the digital version. Although I'll argue that if you were willing to wait till the 22nd, you're probably willing to wait just a little bit more to get the physical version for this game. but I'm sure the game being in short supply in some retail locations definitely is at least contributing somewhat to the strong sales of Prime Remastered. That all said, we're really only seeing good signs for Prime Remastered here. I'll even argue that with this scalping situation, while that's definitely not a good thing, the fact that people are seeing that this game is in high demand, that increases its perceived value. It bodes well for the game to continue to sell well. And I've already talked about ad nauseum about how it's still at the top of the eShop charts. Signs are very strong for Prime Remastered sales. And Nintendo is now becoming aware of the strong demand. So what does it mean for the rest of the series? Well, in short, it means Nintendo's going to take Metroid more seriously. Dread became the best-selling Metroid game of all time when it released back in 2021, and it's a stronger selling game than most of the Fire Emblem and Xenoblade games, and we see frequent entries for those particular series. So that speaks well for the future of the Metroid series. But now, with Prime Remastered, even though it was Shadow Drop with minimal celebration, it almost seems like the Shadow Drop worked in its favor. And with the looming Prime 4, with all the ambition and scope we think this game has, something perhaps even comparable to Breath of the Wild, not so much in terms of gameplay, but in terms of being a masterpiece, it makes sense. Nintendo did tell us that they wanted Prime 4 to measure up to the original Metroid Prime when they initially announced the restart for the game. And they may have even engineered this situation somewhat with this limited supply and this Shadow Drop and this $40 price tag. They may have wanted to get people really excited for Prime Remastered and see how valuable this series actually is, in hopes that there will be a lot of momentum and demand for Prime 4 once they actually start talking about this game and eventually releasing this game. And if that game does well, we're looking at a new golden age of Metroid. About a month or so ago, I talked about how we could be looking at a scenario where we see frequent Metroid releases, potentially, if not every year, something close to it. Which may seem crazy to say, but keep in mind, when we go back to the early 2000s, between 2002 and 2010, an 8-year span, there were 9 different Metroid releases. So we're now in a scenario where we got Metroid Dread in the latter half of 2021, we had a free DLC update in the first half of 2022, we have Prime Remastered in the beginning of 2023, there are rumors for a follow-up to Metroid Dread to come in 2025, and these rumors are coming from the same place that leaked Metroid Dread before it was announced, and we know Prime 4 is around the corner. Oh, and I almost forgot that Metroid Prime 2 and 3 are also rumored to be coming as well. So Metroid fans are eating good right now. It looks like the future is bright for Metroid, and this is very exciting, and as a longtime Metroid fan, it's nice seeing others give the series a try, and realizing how good it is. This is Metroid's time. This is the time for the series to grow and to reach even greater heights. There was a time back during the GameCube era where Metroid Prime and Zelda were comparable in terms of sales, and there was a fear that Zelda could even start trending in the negative direction. Metroid did in terms of sales, Zelda did not, and now Breath of the Wild is one of the best-selling games ever, especially for the Zelda series, by a significant exponential margin. Who knows what could happen for Metroid Prime 4? I'm not saying it's going to sell 30 million like Breath of the Wild, but it may take the series to far greater heights than we may have ever imagined, and that is very, very exciting. But what do you guys think? What do you make of this limited supply for Metroid Prime Remastered and Nintendo promising to meet the strong demand? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways, everyone, this is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching. I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.